Can you imagine what would happen if we ever elected a criminal, a convicted criminal as president? Now, I know that could never happen. Absolutely impossible. The United States of America electing a criminal, get out of here. Come on. We know that's not going to happen. But let's say it did. Here's something that I think could happen. You know, the click to cancel rules that the Biden administration enacted during his term, during the last year of his term, which was last year. Well, somebody wants to cancel those rules, and it's the man we elected as president. I won't say he's a criminal, even though he's been convicted in a court of law. But who am I to say? Who am I? I mean, okay. So check this out. To me, this is exactly what happens when you elect a criminal as president. He sympathizes with other criminals. He sympathizes with people who take advantage of others. And that's exactly what this case is about. So let me just read this to you and get into it real quick. Court cancels consumer friendly click to cancel rule. Now, watch this. If you're not familiar with this will explain it, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. And I'll tie it all together how a criminal in the White House leads to all of this stuff that will just make life more painful and more of a hassle for the rest of us. A federal appeals court has blocked enforcement of a Federal Trade Commission rule that prohibited companies from making it any more difficult for consumers to cancel than it was to sign up for unwanted subscriptions, memberships, and auto renewals. The U.S. Court of Appeals in St. Louis vacated the click to cancel rule just days before the July 14th enforcement date last month, deciding that the FTC had not followed proper procedure as alleged by several business groups, an assertion the FTC rejected under the Biden administration. But they are no longer rejecting that charge now under the Trump administration. The court's ruling noted that it did not endorse the use of unfair and deceptive practices and negative option marketing, meaning you can opt out, you take a negative act. And of course, they don't endorse unfair practices, but their ruling will allow those to continue. The FTC has not commented on the ruling, a spokesperson told Checkbook, whoever that is. But anyway, the spokesperson told this, I guess, media organization that the Federal Trade Commission is considering its options. But because the commission is now chaired by a Republican who voted against the rule last year, it's unlikely the FTC will appeal the court's ruling. The second Trump administration in general has not supported new rules aimed at improving consumer protections. Why not? And why do we want that? So let me, should I explain or read a little more? Let me read a little more because this basically explains it pretty well. But as Checkbook previously reported, the FTC created the rule after receiving thousands of complaints a year about the tedious and time-consuming roadblocks customers encountered when trying to cancel subscriptions. The rule required companies to make it as easy to cancel as it was to sign up. Reasonable, right? The same process and the same number of steps. So if it took one click online to subscribe, then it had to take only one click to unsubscribe. If a customer signed up on the phone, then the company had to allow them to cancel with a phone call, not a letter, not in writing, not by an email, not by going to a website. You get to cancel the same way you signed up. So reasonable. Companies that offered subscriptions would also be required to clearly and conspicuously disclose important information, including the amount of recurring charges and the frequency, the deadline to cancel, and when the initial price might increase. All of this is so reasonable. Now, conservatives, and I grew up as a conservative, so I know this kind of inside thinking, we always used to think government was completely corrupt and business was pure. Now, as a Christian, I look back on that and realize that was kind of crazy because as Christians, we know all people are sinners. So why would business people not be, but government people would be? It only makes sense that people in both groups would be, and therefore people in business would be susceptible to things like greed, a very common sin. So I don't know how I lived so long and didn't realize that or put two and two together. But finally, I don't know, a few years ago, it occurred to me, how could you think business people don't have greed? You know? Anyway, so here's the thing. I don't know if you remember this because it's been maybe, it seems like a year or so since companies started kind of doing this. And I know Google was one of the first and they do it really well. If you subscribe to anything on Google that, through the Play Store or the Chrome Store or whatever, and you have to pay a monthly fee or an annual fee, Google is so good about giving you the information right up front. You just log into your account and over on the left, you click something called subscriptions. That's it. And on the right, you'll see a list of everything you're currently subscribed to, how much it costs, when it's going to renew, and a button that says, or a link that says, click here to cancel. And if you click that, you're done. You canceled. It's over. But before this came along, companies would make it nearly impossible to cancel anything. They would ask you to email them. They would say it has to be in writing. You have to send us an email. Then they would take days and days and days to answer the email. Or a lot of times, infuriatingly, you could sign up for something online, but when you wanted to cancel, you had to call a phone number, which of course would mean a long wait on hold. You get the voicemail system, you have to go through, hoops and flips to get to somebody maybe 20 minutes later who would then argue with you. I had people who were so aggressive trying to talk me out of canceling. I mean, it was unbelievable. At some point, you just got to say, look, I want to cancel, so cancel me. Don't ask me why. Don't try to talk me out of it. Don't tell me my reasons are bad. I'm canceling. I'm not going to pay anymore, so cancel it. And they would still blab and talk and try to talk you out of it. It was really insane. So to me, that really goes over the line. That's really taking advantage of people. When you make it that hard to cancel, but that easy to sign up, you're really saying, that you're willing to do anything to take advantage of people, to get as much money out of them as possible, even when you know they don't want to pay you anymore. And it's when you cross that line into taking money from people, even after you know, or you should know, or maybe you don't know because you prevented them from being able to tell you, but the effect is the same. In essence, they don't want to pay anymore. When you take money from people and you know they don't want to pay anymore, that's fraud. And fraud is a crime. And guess who is standing with the fraudsters? And why should it be any surprise? He's taken the side of criminals all through his life. And he is a convicted criminal. He thinks like a criminal. He's lawless in the White House. The courts rule something, we'll just skirt around it. And I mean, several judges just this week or last week came down on the Department of Justice and said, "Look, we don't trust you. You're lying to us. We've seen you lie to us," and just skirt the law. So that's the kind of man we've put in the White House. And now, if companies revert back to how it was before these rules took place last year, um, life's going to be a lot harder for people. And I know MAGA people sign up for things online. I know they subscribe to things like football, NFL, NASCAR, whatever. Um, you know, they are like everybody else. We all subscribe to things. And when you want to cancel, it's going to get a lot harder. It's going to be one of those daily nuisances that's just going to get under your skin. And you're going to think, this is terrible. I hate this. And you're never, if you don't know the story, if you don't know the details of what happened on this subject, click to cancel, you'll never know. It's because your president, your MAGA president, overturned the rules that were designed to make it fair for customers so people would be treated rightly and fairly. It's your criminal president. You said, I don't care. He committed crimes. The courts are corrupt. They accused him of things that he didn't do, and they just convicted him. Well, you're going to start to find out what it's like to live under a criminal as president. All right. Look, if you agree with me, just get the word out. Let your MAGA friends know because it's not a big story in the news. No one's going to talk about it. There's so many other big, big, big things going on that are more interesting than this. But this is one of those things that will hit you daily. Okay, not daily, but every few months or so, you want to cancel something, and it's going to be harder. You're going to spend time on the phone that you could have better spent doing something else, like watching football or something. I don't know. Anyway, let people know. Let people know this is going on behind the scenes and nobody's paying attention. So, let your MAGA friends know. So when they get annoyed in a few months that they had a hard time canceling something, they will know whose fault it is. They'll know who to put the blame on. All right. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Take care, and I'll see you next time.